The sun of Zerath Prime was dying in the sky, casting long red streaks across the jagged mountains and glassy plains. The air shimmered with heat, and distant winds carried the faint hum of the colony's engines and the occasional roar of native beasts. Lieutenant Marcus Kane adjusted the strap of his rifle across his chest and scanned the horizon. The Viren Palace loomed ahead, a shimmering tower of translucent crystal that reflected the dying sun like a giant flame. It was beautiful, yes, but beauty could not stop bullets or betrayal. Marcus had served as a mercenary on countless worlds, but nothing had prepared him for this. Guarding an alien queen, Thalira of the Virens, in a world where loyalty was fragile and survival depended on instinct. The Virens were magnificent beings. Their four-legged frames were sleek and muscular, their skin iridescent like polished stone, and their eyes glowed faintly in the dimming light. They were majestic, yes, but too reliant on ritual and fear. Humans, Marcus had learned, were different. Humans could improvise. Humans could choose courage even when fear screamed in their ears. His squad had been stationed at the palace perimeter for 3 weeks. During that time, Marcus had observed the Viren guards closely. They were capable fighters, but their loyalty was conditional. Thalira's enemies did not need to be cunning to defeat them. They needed only to be threatening enough. Marcus's fingers tightened on his rifle. That would not happen today, not on his watch. He glanced at the queen. Thalira stood atop the balcony, her posture straight and elegant, the faint glow of her skin pulsing with a soft light. Even in calm moments, she radiated authority. She did not speak, but the weight of her gaze fell on Marcus, almost as if she could read the resolve in his human heart. "Lieutenant Kane," she said finally, her voice like liquid metal, smooth but carrying a subtle edge of command. "Are you certain your species can endure what is to come?" Marcus swallowed. "Ma'am, humans endure. We fight when others run, and we survive when others fall. I'll not leave you." Thalira inclined her head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement. Then the distant sound came, shouts, metallic clangs, the unmistakable thrum of weapons. Marcus's heart raced, but not with fear, with anticipation. His instincts had warned him that today would test everything he knew. "Ambush," Marcus muttered to himself. He sprinted toward the outer walls, signaling to his squad. But even as he raised his hand, he realized something that made his stomach twist. The Viren guards, 24 of them armed with energy lances and plasma blades, were frozen, their eyes wide with shock. And then one by one they began to retreat. Panic overrode training. Fear replaced loyalty. Marcus's jaw tightened. "No," he growled, "not today." He lunged forward, positioning himself between the advancing enemy and the queen. Bullets and plasma bolts streaked through the air. He dove behind a crystalline pillar, returning fire with precise shots. Every muscle in his body coiled like a spring. Marcus knew his odds were slim. The Viren insurgents were numerous and relentless. But he also knew something else. Humans never gave up when their purpose was clear. The queen had stepped back from the balcony, her glowing form bending light in ways Marcus found mesmerizing. She was vulnerable, yes, but not afraid. Not yet. He had to make sure it stayed that way. He barked orders to the remaining soldiers, mostly humans, scattered across the perimeter. "Form a line, cover the exits, trap them in the courtyard." They moved, uncertain but inspired by his confidence. Marcus's voice was not just command. It was a spark that reminded them humans could be leaders under impossible pressure. The insurgents surged forward, their weapons cutting arcs of blue fire through the air. Marcus sprinted from cover to cover, his rifle spitting precision shots. One insurgent fell, then another, and then another. But for everyone he took down, 2 more took its place. He could feel exhaustion creeping into his limbs, but he pushed it aside. Humans could endure pain, humans could endure fear. Amid the chaos, a Viren guard named Velrak skidded back into the palace hall. "Lieutenant Kane, they are too many." "They are never too many for humans," Marcus snapped. He fired a shot that detonated the energy pack of an incoming insurgent, sending him flying backward into the courtyard wall. "Stand your ground, or you die running." Velrak hesitated, then slowly nodded. Marcus could see the disbelief in the Viren's eyes, how a human could remain calm while his own species crumbled. As the battle raged, Marcus ducked behind a pillar and peeked around the edge. The insurgent leader, High General Kreth, was advancing with a squad of elite Virens. He was taller than any human, his armor jagged and menacing. Marcus studied him quickly. Kreth relied on brute force and intimidation, something Marcus had fought against before. But humans had an advantage no one else had: unpredictability. Marcus grinned. He took a calculated risk, sprinting across the open floor in a perfect arc, narrowly avoiding a plasma bolt that incinerated a pillar where he had been seconds before. He rolled behind cover near the Queen's balcony, breathing heavily. She watched him, her glowing eyes wide with something akin to admiration. "You are different," she said quietly, almost to herself. Marcus ignored the compliment. "Different means we survive." A sudden explosion shook the palace, throwing dust and shards into the air. Marcus's eardrums rang and he felt the heat on his skin. Some of the Viren guards who had fled were now frozen behind the new barricades. Marcus did not flinch. He ran toward the Queen, grabbing her arm gently but firmly. "Stay low," he ordered. She obeyed, moving behind him with a grace that belied her size. Time blurred. Marcus ducked, fired, rolled, and sprinted, constantly shielding Thalira. He used the palace architecture to his advantage, leading enemies into narrow corridors where their numbers counted for nothing. One by one, he incapacitated them, not killing unnecessarily, but ensuring they could not advance. Hours seemed to pass like minutes. Sweat dripped into his eyes, limbs ached. His lungs burned, yet Marcus never stopped. He could see the desperation in the insurgents' eyes, the realization that one human could hold them off while the Virens, stronger in body and instinct, had failed. During a brief lull, Marcus glanced at the Queen. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I am safe, thanks to you," she said. Her voice was steady, but Marcus caught a hint of vulnerability. He nodded. "Not thanks to me alone," he said. "Thanks to humans, we don't run." Outside, the battle had escalated. Reinforcements from nearby colonies were on their way, but until then, Marcus was all that stood between the Queen and death. And he was ready. As night fell over Zerath Prime, the palace glimmered under the twin moons. The red light of the sun gave way to silver shadows, and Marcus knew the insurgents would not stop. But neither would he. Humans did not flee when others faltered. Humans did not abandon their duty, even against impossible odds. He positioned himself at the final checkpoint, the Queen behind him, and took a deep breath. The sounds of combat filled the halls, shouts, energy blasts, the cries of those falling, but Marcus's mind was clear. His focus was absolute. Every step, every shot, every movement was deliberate. And then the Queen spoke again, softly, almost reverently. "I do not know your species well, human, but your courage is extraordinary." Marcus allowed himself a brief smile. "We survive, your majesty." "That is what humans do." He could hear the insurgents regrouping. He could see them advancing through the halls, but he was not afraid. Fear had no hold over him, not when his purpose was clear. He had made a choice, and that choice was absolute. The Viren guards who had fled earlier peered from behind walls, watching in disbelief. One of them muttered, "Why does a human fight like this?" Marcus did not answer. He just raised his rifle and prepared for the next wave. Humans fought differently. Humans endured differently. Humans, alone or with others, stood when all else fled. And on this night, on this alien world, Marcus Kane would prove that once again. The first part of the battle was won, but the war was far from over. Somewhere in the shadowed corridors of the palace, Kreth and his elite squad were plotting their next move. Marcus knew that their cunning and force would test every ounce of his skill. But he had something they did not: human ingenuity, human courage, and a human heart that refused to abandon its duty. And as the moons rose over the jagged peaks of Zerath Prime, casting long, silver shadows across the crystalline palace, Marcus stood firm. Alone, against overwhelming odds, he remained a shield for the alien queen who had been abandoned by her own kind. Tonight, he was not just a soldier. He was humanity incarnate, brave, unwavering, and unbroken. The fight had only begun. The night deepened over Zerath Prime, and the palace shimmered in the cold light of its twin moons. Lieutenant Marcus Kane kept his stance firm, the alien queen behind him, her glowing form a beacon amid the shadows. The sounds of the insurgent forces echoed through the crystalline halls: footsteps, the hum of energy weapons, the occasional frustrated shout. Marcus's mind was already calculating, already predicting. He could not let them reach Thalira. Not now, not ever. He moved silently along a corridor, guiding the queen with careful hands. "This way," he whispered. The corridor narrowed as it spiraled upward, and Marcus used the architecture to his advantage, placing himself between any approaching threat and the queen. Thalira followed him with grace. Even though she was not trained for combat like Marcus, there was something in her presence that commanded attention. Her glow pulsed faintly in sync with her heartbeat, and Marcus could not help but notice that even amidst danger, she carried herself with dignity. Humans might be simple in biology, but they recognized leadership, no matter the form it took. They paused at an intersection where the walls were fractured, shards of crystal jutting out like jagged teeth. Marcus crouched low, listening. The insurgent soldiers were regrouping, speaking in the harsh clicks and hisses of Viren language. He could not understand the words, but he understood the intent. They were coming. "Your Majesty," Marcus said quietly, "if you stay behind me, I can hold them off long enough for you to reach the upper chambers. They will not get past us." Thalira nodded, her expression unreadable but trusting. "I follow you, human," she said. The first wave came swiftly. Marcus reacted instinctively, diving to the side and firing his rifle with precision. The bolts of energy from the insurgents sparked against the crystalline walls, showering the corridor with shards that glinted in the moonlight. Marcus's training, his human reflexes, allowed him to anticipate their movements, outthinking enemies who relied on instinct alone. One Viren soldier leapt toward him, claws extended. Marcus rolled to the side, grabbing a fallen crystal shard as an improvised blade, and swung. The soldier fell, stunned but alive. Marcus did not kill unnecessarily. Humans had a capacity for restraint that Virens often underestimated. They moved forward, the queen following closely. Marcus kept scanning every corridor, every shadow. His mind worked in patterns, predicting movement, calculating trajectories, imagining every possible outcome. Humans had a unique edge in war, imagination. While the Virens were powerful, they were predictable. Humans could bend the rules of expectation, turn even a hopeless situation into an opportunity. Hours passed like minutes. They reached a hall that overlooked the palace's central atrium. From this vantage, Marcus could see the insurgent forces swarming below, a living sea of glowing eyes and jagged armor. The sight would have terrified most, but Marcus only felt determination. The queen looked down at the same view, her expression a mixture of awe and concern. "They are many," she said. "They are not enough," Marcus replied. "Humans make up for what we lack in numbers with strategy, courage, and the willingness to fight when all others flee." A sudden alarm sounded in the distance, a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through the crystal floors. The insurgents had triggered the palace's security protocols in a desperate attempt to overwhelm them. Marcus seized the moment. "Listen to me," he said. "We can use this. Follow my lead and stay close." He darted to a control panel along the wall, fingers flying over alien symbols he barely understood. Human intuition guided him more than comprehension. He activated the nearest defense turrets, sending waves of energy blasts into the insurgents below. The palace shook as the attackers screamed and fell back, momentarily stunned by the unexpected human ingenuity. Thalira watched, her glow brightening slightly. "You understand our technology faster than my own people," she said. "Why?" Marcus shrugged. "Humans learn by doing, we adapt, we survive. That is what we do better than anyone else." The queen's eyes softened, a faint flicker of trust deepening into respect. Marcus felt the weight of that unspoken bond. In a galaxy full of threats, sometimes loyalty and courage could forge alliances stronger than genetics or tradition. Suddenly, a crash echoed from the lower levels. Marcus knew immediately it was Kreth. The insurgent leader had moved past the outer defenses, bringing elite troops with him. Marcus's pulse quickened, but fear did not touch him. Humans did not allow fear to dictate action. They converted it into focus. "Stay close, Your Majesty," he warned. "It's going to get dangerous." Thalira nodded, her form glowing brighter as if she drew strength from Marcus's resolve. Together, they descended a spiraling staircase into a series of narrow corridors. Here, Marcus's knowledge of human tactics shone. He set traps using debris, rerouted power conduits to electrocute enemy soldiers, and led the insurgents into kill zones where their numbers were meaningless. One by one, they fell back, disoriented and frustrated. Marcus's calm confidence inspired those few Viren guards who had stayed, showing them that courage could turn the tide even when tradition failed. They reached the inner sanctum, a grand hall with pillars of glowing crystal rising to a ceiling lost in shadow. Here, Marcus made a choice. He positioned the queen behind a reinforced pillar and took the front line. "No one gets through here," he said. The first of Kreth's elite forces arrived. Marcus fired, dodged, and moved in perfect rhythm, a dance of survival. Humans had an advantage Virans often did not anticipate: improvisation. He used the hall's verticality to his advantage, climbing pillars, jumping across ledges, using gravity and space like extensions of his own body. Each action was precise, deliberate, deadly. Thalira watched in silence. For the first time, she saw a human as not just a soldier, but a strategist, a protector, and a force to be reckoned with. The Queen's trust deepened with every successful maneuver, every enemy defeated by the human who refused to run. Hours of fighting wore Marcus down, but his endurance was legendary. Humans could withstand more than most species could imagine, and Marcus proved it with every breath, every step, every calculated strike. He refused to let the Queen down, even when exhaustion made his limbs tremble and his vision blur. Amid the chaos, a moment of clarity came. Marcus realized that this battle was more than survival. It was a statement. Humanity had always been underestimated in the galaxy. Their bodies were weaker, their technology often slower to mature, their cultures chaotic. Yet when tested, humans could rise above the impossible. One man, he thought, could make a difference. One human could change the outcome of a war. Another wave of insurgents approached. Marcus's rifle clicked against empty energy cells. He swore under his breath, then grabbed a fallen Viran energy blade. The metal sang in his hands. Humans might lack strength, but humans had cunning, determination, and a refusal to surrender. Marcus carved a path through the attackers, moving like a shadow, each strike saving the Queen, each maneuver a lesson in human resilience. Thalira stayed low, but she was not passive. She watched Marcus, learning from his strategies, noting the ways he thought beyond fear and instinct. The bond between human and alien deepened with every clash, every shared breath in the heart of the battlefield. The sound of reinforcements approached from distant corridors. Marcus could hear them, other humans from nearby colonies moving swiftly to join the fight. Relief flickered through him, but he did not relax. The fight was far from over. Kreth was still out there, a shadowy figure of menace and strategy, and Marcus knew the insurgent leader would test every limit of his resolve. Yet even as fatigue gnawed at his body, Marcus felt a surge of pride. He had done what Virans could not. He had held his ground. He had protected the Queen when others ran, and in doing so he had shown something fundamental. Human courage could shine brighter than fear, brighter than alien might, brighter than the darkness of betrayal. The night stretched on, but the palace halls seemed different now. The Queen's glow was steadier, her movements more assured. The remaining Viran guards, inspired by Marcus's bravery, began to take tentative positions, realizing that the human soldier was not just a protector, but a symbol. Marcus paused for a moment, catching his breath behind a shattered pillar. "Your Majesty," he said, voice low but firm, "we are not safe yet. Kreth is still out there, but we will survive this night. We will survive because humans do not give up. We do not flee, we endure." Thalira looked at him, her glowing eyes reflecting both awe and something deeper, trust, respect, and perhaps the recognition that humans, though fragile in form, possessed a strength that even Virans could not replicate. "I see now," she said softly. "Your species is remarkable." "Not for power, but for courage." Marcus allowed himself a brief smile. "Courage keeps us alive, Your Majesty. Courage keeps us human." In that moment, the palace no longer felt like a prison or a battlefield. It felt like a proving ground, where one human soldier could defy expectations, rewrite the rules of engagement, and protect an alien queen when all else failed. As the first hints of dawn began to touch the crystalline spires, Marcus knew that the night had been survived, but the war had not yet ended. Kreth would return, stronger and more cunning, yet Marcus did not fear the future. Humans had faced impossible odds before, and they would face them again. And so, with the Queen behind him and the palace slowly regaining order, Marcus Kane prepared for the next wave. He had proven the first truth: humans could endure what others could not. And the galaxy was only beginning to understand what that meant. The palace of Zerath Prime was quiet now, but only in comparison. Shadows stretched long across the crystalline floors as Lieutenant Marcus Kane moved carefully through the halls, the glow of Queen Thalira casting faint light behind him. The insurgents had retreated for a moment, regrouping in the lower levels, but Marcus knew this was only temporary. High General Kreth was not a commander who accepted defeat. He would return stronger, smarter, deadlier. Marcus paused near a shattered archway, listening. The palace was eerily still, but he could feel the tension in the walls, in the air, in the way the floors seemed to hum under his boots. Humans had learned to read danger in ways other species could not. Marcus could feel it in his chest, the electric pulse of anticipation, a sense that the next hours would decide not only the Queen's fate, but perhaps the outcome of the entire rebellion. Thalira followed silently, her glow steady but tense. She had watched Marcus through the night and had seen how he faced impossible odds with calm precision. She did not need words to know that he was extraordinary. Even the few Viren guards who remained watched him with a mixture of awe and fear. Marcus had become more than a soldier, he had become a symbol. "They will come back," Thalira said softly, almost as if testing the truth. "They will," Marcus replied, "and we will be ready. Humans do not wait for fate to strike. We prepare, we fight, and we endure." He guided the Queen to a narrow passage that led to a series of defensive choke points he had memorized during the earlier battle. Here, he could control the flow of attackers, channeling them into narrow corridors where their numbers counted for nothing. Humans were clever in ways other species often did not anticipate. They could turn weakness into strength. Marcus intended to prove that tonight. The first signs of movement came from the lower levels. A faint echo, the metallic scrape of armored boots, the hum of energy weapons being readied. Kreth's forces were approaching, and Marcus tightened his grip on his rifle. He could hear the Queen behind him, but she was silent, trusting him completely. That trust was a weapon in itself. When the insurgents emerged into the corridor, Marcus was ready. He had rigged the passage with debris and energy traps, forcing them to slow and giving him the advantage. His first shots were precise, taking out the lead attackers before they could react. The corridor became a kill zone, but Marcus did not revel in it. Every action was measured, every shot calculated to protect Thalira and conserve strength for the battles yet to come. Kreth appeared at the head of his squad, towering and intimidating, his armor jagged and dark, eyes glowing like coals in the dim light. Marcus studied him carefully. The general relied on fear and force, but Marcus had learned that humans had an edge even against the strongest enemies: unpredictability. Kreth charged forward, and Marcus reacted instantly, ducking behind a pillar and firing with precision. He rolled to the side as Kreth's energy blade smashed into the crystal floor, sending shards flying in all directions. Marcus struck back, not with brute force, but with agility and strategy. He lured Kreth into a narrow corridor lined with fallen beams and unstable crystal shards. The general's size worked against him here, while Marcus's smaller frame allowed him to move quickly, striking at weak points and retreating before Kreth could counter. The corridor erupted into chaos. Energy bolts flew, crystal shards shattered, and the sounds of battle echoed through the palace halls. Marcus's mind worked like a machine, calculating every angle, predicting every move. Humans had the ability to innovate in real time, to adapt to situations where instinct alone would fail. Marcus used that advantage fully, moving faster than Kreth expected, striking with precision that no Viren soldier could match. Thalira stayed close, observing, learning. Her glow brightened with every move Marcus made, and she began to see the power humans possessed, not in strength, not in numbers, but in courage, intelligence, and moral resolve. Marcus did not falter. Marcus did not hesitate. Marcus did not run. That was human nature distilled into action, and it was a lesson that no Viren had anticipated. The battle continued for hours. Kreth's forces pushed relentlessly, but Marcus was always one step ahead. He used the palace's verticality, climbing walls and leaping across gaps to confuse and divide the attackers. He set traps that used the very structure of the building against them, sending reinforcements into ambushes that Marcus had designed in seconds. Fatigue gnawed at him, but Marcus ignored it. Humans had endurance that often surprised other species. Their bodies could be exhausted, their minds strained, but their will remained. Marcus's will was unbreakable. He could feel the rhythm of battle, the ebb and flow of danger, and he danced through it with the grace of a predator and the precision of a tactician. Kreth realized Marcus was different. The human did not fight like a Viren. He did not rely on strength or instinct. He relied on mind, on calculation, on courage, and that made him dangerous beyond expectation. Kreth's attacks became more deliberate, more cunning, but Marcus was always ready, always anticipating, always adapting. At one point, Marcus found himself cornered in a grand hall, the ceiling high above and the walls lined with fragile crystal columns. Kreth advanced with several elite soldiers, his presence looming over the human like a shadow of death. Marcus could feel the danger pressing in from all sides, but he did not falter. He glanced at Thalira. "Stay close," he whispered. "I will not let them touch you." The queen's glow pulsed, almost like a heartbeat in response. Marcus felt a surge of determination. Humans fought not just for survival, but for others, for honor, for loyalty. That bond, human or alien, was what gave them strength beyond the physical. Marcus acted quickly. He ducked behind a column, then rolled to the side, using the architecture to block Kreth's path. He created a chain reaction, sending shards of crystal flying to knock enemies off balance. He used his rifle to fire at control panels along the walls, triggering localized energy discharges that stunned the attackers. Every move was calculated to maximize protection for Thalira and minimize risk to himself. The queen followed his lead, stepping lightly, keeping low, learning the rhythms of human strategy. Marcus could see it in her eyes, respect, awe, and trust. Humans could teach even a queen of an alien species lessons about courage and ingenuity. Hours passed, and the battle continued. Marcus was relentless, moving faster than exhaustion would allow, thinking clearer than fatigue should permit. He carved a path through the insurgents, defending the queen with every ounce of skill he possessed. The few Viren guards who remained began to take heart, following his lead, inspired by the human who refused to yield. Finally, Marcus confronted Kreth directly. The general's energy blade clashed against Marcus's improvised crystal blade, sparks flying with each strike. Kreth's strength was formidable, but Marcus's agility and strategy allowed him to exploit openings that the general never expected. The human moved in ways that were impossible to predict, striking, retreating, and striking again. Thalira watched in silence. She had seen warriors before, but never like this. Marcus was not just fighting, he was teaching, demonstrating what humans could do when faced with impossible odds. His courage was infectious, his determination unshakable. At last, Kreth faltered, overextended, and Marcus saw his opportunity. He dodged the final strike, sent a surge of energy through the hall using a control panel, and forced Kreth to retreat. The elite soldiers around him panicked, giving Marcus the chance to regroup and hold the line. The human soldier stood victorious, though battered and exhausted. The queen approached, her glow steady now, her voice soft but full of respect. "You have done what none of my own could," she said. "You have protected me when others fled. You have shown me the strength of your species." Marcus lowered his blade, breathing heavily. "Humans endure," he said simply. "We fight when others run, we survive when others fall. That is what we do." For the first time, Thalira seemed to smile, a subtle curve of her luminous lips. "I see now," she said. "Humans are not defined by strength alone, but by courage and loyalty. You have shown me the truth of your people." The Viren guards who had returned during the battle looked on with newfound respect. Marcus had not only defended the queen, but had also demonstrated the qualities that made humans extraordinary. Even the enemy, as they withdrew, could not ignore the brilliance of his strategy and the courage behind every move. As dawn began to touch the crystalline spires of the palace, Marcus allowed himself a brief rest. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Kreth would return, and the insurgents would regroup, stronger and more determined than ever. Yet Marcus was ready. Humans did not yield to fear or despair. They adapted, they endured, and they fought for what they believed in. Thalira stood beside him, her presence a quiet reminder of what he was protecting. Humans fought not just for survival, but for the lives of those they swore to protect, for the ideals they believed in, and for the honor of standing firm when all else fell. Marcus Kane embodied that truth, and the galaxy was beginning to notice. Even as the palace began to recover from the chaos, Marcus knew this: the final confrontation with Kreth was approaching. It would test his skill, his courage, and his humanity to the fullest. But one thing was certain: he would not falter, he would stand, he would fight. And he would prove once again that when others run, humans endure. The sun of Zerath Prime rose slowly over the crystalline spires of the palace, casting long, silver streaks across the jagged landscape. The battle had raged through the night, leaving shattered walls, smoldering debris, and echoes of distant shouts. Lieutenant Marcus Kane stood in the central hall, breathing heavily, his armor scorched in places, his human body aching in ways Virans could never understand. Yet his mind was clear. The final confrontation had come. High General Kreth was coming back, and this time there would be no retreat. Queen Thalira's glow shone brighter than ever. She had observed Marcus all night, her respect and trust for the human soldier growing with every move he had made. To her people, humans were fragile, impulsive, and unpredictable. To Marcus, Virans were strong, swift, and honorable, but often blind to creativity and moral courage. Now she saw the truth of what a human could do. Endurance, intelligence, and loyalty combined into something formidable. "They are approaching," Marcus said, his voice steady despite exhaustion. He scanned the hall, noting every possible path the enemy could take. His rifle rested against his shoulder, but his mind was already forming strategies faster than Kreth could react. "Stay behind me, Your Majesty. This ends here." Thalira nodded, placing herself behind him, her glowing form casting light across the polished crystal floor. The remaining Viran guards had taken positions under Marcus's command. They were hesitant, but their fear had been replaced by admiration. Humans had taught them a lesson, one that could not be unlearned. A tremor ran through the palace. Kreth and his elite soldiers had returned, advancing with the precision of a machine. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Kreth was formidable, but human ingenuity had always found ways to overcome brute strength. He remembered the words he had repeated all night: humans endure, humans survive, humans fight when others flee. As the insurgents entered the hall, Marcus activated the traps he had prepared earlier: fallen crystal columns, energy conduits, and automated defensive panels. Sparks erupted as Kreth's forces struggled to adapt. The general roared in frustration, his glowing eyes narrowing as he assessed the situation. He had underestimated the human. Marcus darted forward, weaving between obstacles, his rifle firing in controlled bursts. Every shot was precise, every movement deliberate. He used the palace architecture as a weapon, guiding the insurgents into positions where their numbers were useless. Humans could think in ways other species could not. They could innovate under pressure, improvise when plans failed, and adapt faster than instincts could predict. Kreth charged at him directly, his massive energy blade slashing through the air. Marcus rolled aside, narrowly avoiding a strike that would have ended him instantly. He grabbed a shard of fallen crystal and used it to deflect the next blow. Kreth's strength was terrifying, but Marcus had something stronger: ingenuity and courage. Humans could endure pain, but more importantly, they could endure fear. Thalira stayed close, observing the fight. She realized that Marcus's actions were more than tactical. They were teaching her people a lesson in what it meant to be brave, to be loyal, to be human. Even the remaining Viran guards began to move with more confidence, inspired by the human who refused to yield. Marcus feinted to the left, then swung to the right, striking Kreth's flank with precision. The general stumbled, his balance disrupted by the unexpected human agility. Marcus did not hesitate. He pressed forward, using the environment to his advantage, pushing Kreth into a narrow corridor where his size was a liability. The fight became a blur of motion, sparks, and controlled energy blasts. Kreth's elite soldiers tried to surround Marcus, but he anticipated their moves, guiding them into his carefully prepared traps. One by one, they fell back, disoriented and frustrated, unable to predict the human's strategies. Marcus glanced at the queen. "Stay back," he warned. "I'll end this." Thalira nodded, but her glow pulsed brighter, as if lending strength to the human. She had learned something vital. Humans did not fight only with their bodies or weapons. They fought with courage, with loyalty, with the moral determination to protect others even at the cost of their own lives. Kreth roared again, swinging his blade in a deadly arc. Marcus ducked, rolled, and struck with a crystal shard that jammed the general's weapon for a moment. That was all he needed. He fired a concentrated energy blast from his rifle, aimed precisely at a structural conduit, sending a shockwave that knocked Kreth off balance. The general fell to one knee, and Marcus pressed forward, keeping his movements fast, sharp, and unpredictable. The elite soldiers hesitated. They had never seen a human fight like this, not brute force, not reckless aggression, but calculated courage combined with rapid adaptability. Marcus's resolve was infectious. Even the Queen's guards, who had doubted humans for so long, now moved with purpose, covering angles, reinforcing traps, and pushing back the insurgents with renewed energy. Marcus advanced, cornering Kreth in the grand atrium, the pale light of dawn reflecting off the crystal floor. He did not strike immediately. Instead, he forced the general to see him, human to alien, one fighting for loyalty, one for conquest. "It ends here," Marcus said firmly. "You will not take her, you will not break this palace, you will not break me." Kreth's roar shook the hall, but Marcus's gaze did not falter. He attacked, not with rage, but with precision and strategy. Kreth's strikes were powerful, but Marcus used his smaller frame, his knowledge of angles, and his ingenuity to avoid them. Every parry, every dodge, every counterstrike was deliberate. Humans fought differently. Humans used more than strength. They used intelligence, will, and heart. Finally, Marcus disarmed Kreth, forcing him to stumble backward into the last trap Marcus had prepared. Energy fields surged, lights flashed, and Kreth was immobilized, caught not by brute force, but by human cleverness. The remaining insurgents saw their leader defeated and surrendered, overwhelmed not just by power, but by the ingenuity and courage of one human soldier. Marcus lowered his weapon, chest heaving, sweat and dust coating his skin. The Queen approached, her glow radiant, her voice steady and full of respect. "You have done what my own could not. You have protected me when all else fled. You have shown me the strength of your people." Marcus shook his head, exhaustion heavy on him. "Humans survive, your majesty. We endure, we fight, and we protect. That is what we do." The Viren guards, those who had remained and those who had returned, looked at Marcus with awe. Their understanding of humans had changed forever. Humans were not the fragile, impulsive creatures they had assumed. Humans could stand when all else fled. Humans could lead, strategize, and inspire. Marcus had proven it with every action, every choice, every risk taken to protect the Queen. Thalira placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "Your species is remarkable, not for your strength alone, but for your courage, your ingenuity, your loyalty. You are a shield when others would run, a mind when others would panic, a heart when others would falter." Marcus allowed himself a brief, tired smile. "We fight for others, that is what makes us human." The palace, though scarred from battle, was safe again. The insurgents were captured or had retreated, their rebellion quelled for now. Marcus surveyed the hall, noting the destruction, the cost, and the proof of human resilience. Humans did not give up. Humans did not flee. Humans endured, and in doing so, they could change the outcome of even the most hopeless situations. Thalira turned to Marcus, her glow softening into something warmer. "From this day, you will not be just a soldier to me. You will be my protector, my advisor, and the symbol of human courage in our galaxy. Your people have earned a place at my side, and I will ensure they are never underestimated again." Marcus bowed slightly, honoring the Queen and the trust she had placed in him. "I serve your majesty. Humanity serves." The Viren guards, inspired and emboldened, moved to reinforce their positions under Marcus's guidance. Even the lower-ranking soldiers who had fled during the initial ambush now understood what it meant to stand firm, to fight with courage, to trust in others, even humans. Marcus had taught them all a lesson in bravery and honor. As Zerath Prime's sun rose fully over the horizon, the palace shimmered in golden light. The battle was over, but the story of one human's courage would be remembered for generations. Marcus Kane, a soldier of humanity, had stood when others ran. He had protected an alien queen, outwitted a formidable general, and shown the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. In that moment, Marcus felt a deep satisfaction, not in victory alone, but in the knowledge that humans had proven themselves extraordinary. They had the ability to inspire, to endure, to fight when hope seemed lost. They had the power to protect others, to think beyond instinct, and to act with courage when all else faltered. Queen Thalira stood beside him, her glow reflecting his own resilience. Together, human and alien, they had survived, and together, they would face whatever challenges the galaxy dared to throw at them. Humans had shown their worth, and the universe would not forget it. Marcus Kane, battered, exhausted, but unbroken, finally allowed himself to breathe. He had survived the impossible, fought the unstoppable, and protected the Queen when all others had fled. Humanity had triumphed not through strength alone, but through courage, loyalty, and the enduring will to protect others. And in that shining palace on Zerath Prime, a new legend was born, a human soldier whose courage changed the fate of a queen, inspired an alien species, and proved that humans, against all odds, could stand when others ran.